Welcome to Arise with Christ. We share stories and truths related to the temple. Together with you, our hope is to fortify faith in Jesus Christ and experience joy in covenant keeping.
I'm Carolee Bailey, and I'm here with Anjali Plojek. Anjali, we have a great episode to share.
We do have a great episode today. I'm so excited that we get to share our interview with Gail Wilhelmsen, our friend, and she is the most accomplished person I think that I know.
She's amazing. She has done so many different things in her life, super talented, and we look forward to this.
That's right. So let me read her bio here. Gail B. Wilhelmsen was born in 1939 in Salt Lake City, Utah, 45 minutes after her identical twin sister, Jill. She enjoyed drawing and painting from a young age. She attended Olympus High School and then Brigham Young University, where she graduated with a BA in art and English. She taught both of these subjects in the Jordan School District and then at Bountiful High School. Following the birth of her fourth child, she returned to school as a student, earning a master's degree in special education, as well as a Ph.D. in psychology. Gail worked as a school psychologist and head of the school psychology graduate program at BYU, and she also worked for the state of Utah for children with special health care needs. After retiring, Gail decided it was time to return to her love of painting. She specializes in watercolor portraits, and some of her favorite subjects have been her children and grandchildren. And I have to say that she's also painted some beautiful portraits of President Nelson in the first presidency. She recently painted a rendering of the Lindon, Utah temple, which we are thrilled to learn more about today. So let's get into our interview with Gail.
Gail, thank you for having us in your home today. We are looking forward to talking to you about your beautiful watercolor painting of the Lindon, Utah temple. Before we talk more about your painting, could you tell us a little bit about how you came to be a painter?
I enjoyed art from a very young age. My mother was quite artistic, and my father was involved in drafting. And so it was we were naturally encouraged, my twin sister and myself, to explore art and to start drawing. And we were reinforced by our parents that what we did as children was interesting and exciting. And so as we went into junior high, I had an excellent art teacher that encouraged me there. And then again in high school. So I had an early interest and a lot of encouragement.
So that was your younger years. And then did you have a period of time where you kind of were away from art in some ways? And
yes, I got my bachelor's degree in art and English. I taught in the Jordan School District, and then I taught in the Davis School District of Bountiful High School. When my last children were born, I went for several years without doing a whole lot in art, taught a couple of classes at home, and then I went back to school and went into an entirely different field. I decided I wanted to learn more about psychology and special ed, and then worked for some 30 years in private practice in the school district, and also ended up at Brigham Young University teaching psychology. So I didn't pick up a paintbrush for 40 years. They say, keep your brushes wet. Mine got very, very dry.
I guess.
Wow.
And then after I retired, I decided to dip my paintbrush back in the water and the paint. And for about the last 9 years, I've been painting and taking workshops consistently.
Now remind me, Gail, what did you teach when you were a teacher?
Art and English.
You taught both? Okay.
And
super. So your paintbrushes were a little bit wet during that time, at least helping other people wet their paintbrushes.
Yes, and I took a few workshops and did quite a bit of painting during that time. Then went in an entirely different direction.
Yeah.
Did you miss art, or were you so focused on the psychology that was just your focus?
I really didn't get very far away from thinking about it because I was interested in neurology in the left-right brain. In a very general sense, the left brain is the language areas, the more concrete areas. The right brain is thought to be more creative and holistic, and where creativity comes from art, music, literature. Although all of us, or most of us, have brains that are both sides of the brains are very connected and interchanged. There really is a difference in ways that people think. And so even though I went into the area of psychology and neurology, I still did a lot of research on creativity, and even my dissertation was looking at left brain versus right brain functioning following a head injury. So I didn't get really too far away from art.
We mentioned earlier that you have a painting of the Lindon, Utah temple. Will you tell us about how you came to paint that?
Yes, I thank you for asking. I had painted the Provo City Center temple actually twice. And that was a building that we all enjoyed. And it was a beautiful old building. And then there was the catastrophic fire. And watching it come up from the ashes as a resurrected building into a temple was just amazing to me. So I did an original painting. And then I went back during a plein air competition where you're on site and painted the temple a second time. These were hanging in my house. And during COVID, the stake president came by to sign my temple recommend. And he didn't know that I was an artist. He just came to the house. He asked if I was one that had painted the pictures of the Provo City Center temple. And I said, yes, I had. And he said, would I be interested in painting the Lindon temple, so that they could give every family a picture of the Lindon temple, as it had just been announced. The architectural rendition had not come out yet, nor the location at that point, but we knew that we were going to have a temple in the Lindon area. And so I was excited that he would ask me, and I said that I would give it a try. It was rather a daunting task for me because I'm not an architect. I really am not great at painting buildings. I much prefer painting people. I like portraits. So I went ahead and started doing some preliminary drawings. And with a lot of fasting and prayer and inspiration, I was able to proceed to paint the temple. I painted 4 sketches and practice paintings before I tried the big one.
Now, how big is it, Gail? What's the size of it?
It's 36 by 40. Generally, watercolor paper comes in 22 by 30 inch paper. That's the standard size. And so I had to order special paper. It comes in a roll to get something that size. And I have never painted anything that large before.
Wow. And didn't you have to have a special device or something made to mount that paper on?
Yes. Watercolor paper, you actually stretch it. It's 100% cotton. And so and that's necessary to have that quality of paper. And so, but when cotton gets wet, whether it's clothing or paper, it's going to distort and shrink. And so you have to mount it on a piece of wood. Anything of that size, even heavy wood, will warp. The paper is so strong, when it shrinks, it will actually distort the board. I tried it and wasn't able to accomplish it. So I had to have a wooden frame made with reinforcement so that the board would stay solid.
And it worked well for you.
Yes. After the frame was made, then it was fine. The only thing is, I'm not very tall, and I could not reach the top of a picture from the bottom. So I had to do some of it, putting the board on the floor and painting upside down.
Oh, my goodness.
Something of that size is in watercolor is daunting. In oil paint, you paint it upright. But in watercolor, the paint drips. It's a good thing if you want it to run, but on an architectural drawing, you don't want the paint to flow uncontrollably downhill. And so it had to be kept flat.
Okay. Now, you mentioned earlier that you're not an architect. Did you consult the church rendering of the temple?
Absolutely.
To work from?
Yes, it's very similar. I took a few liberties in the painting for artistic reasons, but it's very close to the church drawing because there is no other building like this. And so I had to go with the church rendition, which is very, very accurate. Their architects are very skillful.
And you mentioned that you took a few liberties. Tell us a little bit more about aspects that you pulled into your painting, things that you included that were important to you.
having lived in this area for 30 years, I have walked the neighborhood where the temple is being built many, many times. There's a stream going down that was called the Murdoch Canal. It was an open stream at the time that I first moved here. And in the springtime, mallard ducks would swim down the canal, and they'd have little ducklings following them. And these little ducklings were so cute. And I would take my grandchildren down, and we fed the ducks. And it was just a really special touch in our neighborhood that we all enjoyed. And so I added mallard ducks to my painting because of the memory of these little creatures. They're no longer there because the Murdoch Canal has been covered. But it was just a memory that we old-timers have.
As I look at this painting, I did wonder if there was some significance there. So I like hearing about that.
And if you look closely at the painting, there's also a little blue streak across the background, and that's the Murdoch Canal. I didn't make it very vivid because it's been enclosed, but it's still representing the memory of the Murdoch Canal that flowed along there as an open stream. The city of Lindon was named after the Lindon tree, although the spelling has been distorted from the spelling of the linden tree. And so the tree, the branches that are hanging down in the painting are actual linden tree leaves.
So we spell Lindon, right? Lindon, and the tree is Linden.
Yes.
Right? So the linden tree is represented there.
I'm just guessing, but I would think that they'll be planting at least a linden tree on the temple side. It would make
sense, right? Yeah.
Yes.
I can imagine that too. So since you have lived here all these years, Gail, and feel very connected and have so many memories here, what does it mean to you to have a temple being built right here in your community, right so close to your home?
It's really exciting. The proximity is so very close, but it's so amazing to think that we have this special opportunity to have a temple in a close neighborhood.
Yeah, that is so exciting. I mean, I love the thought of the youth lining up early in the morning, clamoring to get in and participate in baptisms, and having the temple right here. Instead of them driving to Mount Timpanogos to line up, they will be lining up just as they walk from their house to the temple so close to us.
And then they can go right to school in the backyard. It's kind of amazing.
The junior high right next door.
Yes.
Very exciting. Gail, how has developing your creative talents helped you come closer to Jesus Christ?
I think that all talent is given to us from God, and if we respect our talent in serving God's purpose, then our talents increase. We truly are a people that believe in God's gifts and honoring those gifts and developing those with a purpose of serving God. And I have felt, as I've painted pictures of the prophet and the first presidency, as well as pictures of the temple, that I've been guided in that process. I've thought about some of the characteristics of painting and how it applies to the gospel. Watercolor is transparent. Oil paint, acrylics tend to be more opaque, but watercolor, one of the joys of watercolor is that you can layer it many layers deep. And I think the gospel is very transparent. There are many layers and depth to the gospel. The gospel principles are completely transparent to all. Also, watercolor can be either transient or permanent. Some colors are very fragile, and we tend not to want to use them. They change, and they can disappear, and they fade. As we look at gospel principles, they are permanent. They don't change. Methods change. The way in which sometimes different things are applied can change, but the principles themselves are always permanent and do not change.
That's a beautiful analogy. I love that.
I think as we talk about conflict in the world today, we think of conflict as a negative thing, opposites causing conflict. But conflict was in pre-existence. There was a war in heaven, and there was a conflict between right and wrong, between two principles. And God created the earth, and he created first the water and the land, and he separated them. if we had not had water and dry land, we wouldn't have mountains and valleys. And because water works on land. And in painting, we have to have contrast. If all the paintings were just one value, they would be very dull. In fact, we say in painting, in any kind of painting, it doesn't matter what color you use, you have to have contrast, you have to have a difference in values. And so this is true in the gospel and also leads into the painting. So as I'm painting, I look for contrast and how to use that contrast. Because land and water are not, they're opposites, but they're not right or wrong. Another contrast would be light and darkness. And in watercolor painting, light and darkness is very, very important. You cannot have half light and half dark. I mean, they can't be put together. They are opposite, but they enhance each other. And we have the opposites in the gospel also. The contrasts that we are faced with every day. And it's not necessarily that there's good and evil. It's good and better, or better and best. I think that we sometimes want to not think of the fact that opposites have to exist. But it's very important because it brings back creativity. It brings about thinking about new solutions in life and in the gospel. As we have opposites, they come together, they can actually make things stronger. In painting, when we put two opposites together, whether it's black and white or whether it's color complements, that each one appears to be stronger. So putting red and green next to each other makes the red look stronger and it makes the green look stronger. But what if we should blend the two? Then we create a whole new palette of color as we put the two together. And so in the gospel, as we blend opposites, the opposite ideas, we actually create a possibility of new and better and richer activities or thoughts or behaviors.
Oh, that's a beautiful thought, Gail. There's so much there. I'm trying to unpack it in my brain still. But one thing I thought of is, of course, Lehi, that he talked about that there must needs be opposition in all things. And you touched on that. I also love your thought about, I don't know if you use the word tension, but kind of that there is some variation and different perspectives. And as we learn to incorporate those different perspectives, see things differently, we create something new and beautiful. And that makes me think of people working together and learning from each other and each other's talents and insights.
President Nelson in the April conference of 2022 said that there is conflict. However, contention is a choice. Conflict can be very good. It's when we turn it to evil purposes or what a win-lose situation, it becomes bad when there's contention. The conflict by itself is an opportunity to grow and develop and create new ideas.
And what a powerful concept, because I think sometimes maybe our natural instinct might be to walk away from conflict, maybe the fight or flight instinct that we have, but the ability to see past a conflict as an opportunity and work through it without creating contention, but have something good come out of that.
I think our very first example would be Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden.
Sure.
They were given actually 3 choices. They were not to partake of the forbidden fruit. They were to obey all the commandments, but they would also multiply and replenish the earth. And they couldn't keep all 3 commandments. They were all good commandments. There was not a good and a bad commandment. And as we all know, Eve did partake so that she could proceed to have children. Now, it could have been that Adam would have said, I'm going to keep on obeying the Lord. I'm just going to sit here and do my thing and bye. And we have this attitude in life sometimes, well, I'm the right one and you made a mistake and I'm not going to go with you. We all know that Adam did not do that. He said that he would partake so that man might be. And so he took the higher path and went with Eve. However, after they left the Garden of Eden, we have to respect that Eve then followed Adam's example as they worshipped and as they offered sacrifice. And so there was a development. Both of them gave and changed, and they both also accepted the other's position. And here we are as human beings as a result of this wonderful development where both of them did the thing that was necessary.
And they worked through that tension and conflict to create this opportunity for all of us. And that creative process is something that you are so well acquainted with in terms of the gospel and also in terms of your art. And because Adam and Eve made that choice and we were able to be created, we have the potential for joy. How do you experience joy through being creative?
Watercolor painting isn't a rigid medium. If you try to approach it to make it behave how you want it to behave, it becomes harsh and not very creative. Watercolor is very fluid and liquid. And if you allow it some freedom to, even without wanting it to do something, sometimes wonderful and surprising and creative things happen. And so it's being able to let go of rigid perception of what you want and letting the medium flow and change that sometimes becomes real joy in you. And I'm teaching a class right now of seniors. And sometimes as they create something, it is amazing to them that they did this. And it's, again, letting the creative process just flow and having the idea that there's other power besides what you want to put into the product. The water has its own characteristics. You need to know those characteristics. But when you obey and follow those characteristics, you can come out with very interesting, creative things. And as humans, we have characteristics. And if we follow the rules that God has laid down and understand what the gospel is, then we can enjoy and have joy.
And it's kind of like allowing the Spirit to work in your life, right?
Yes.
Sometimes it can mold and shape us in ways that we didn't realize. I love the quote by Elder Uchtdorf. He said, "The more you trust and rely upon the Spirit, the greater your capacity is to create." And, as we allow that Spirit to work in our lives, just like the paint, as it kind of does its own things, you understand the principles of it, but it can create something beautiful and unique that maybe we weren't anticipating.
And there's joy in that, right?
Yes, very
not
much.
necessarily knowing the process completely, but trusting that it will work out and letting go. I love how you stated that. That was beautiful. You also have painted, you mentioned earlier, the city center temple. You said that you did that a couple of times, and you have a neat story connected with that. Will you share that story with us?
I was on site painting the temple, and a young woman came up to me, and we talked for a few moments, and she was making a choice as to what job to take. And they were both good jobs, and they both had some opportunity. We were talking about my temple painting, and she was going to go into the temple to pray so that she could make the right decision. We talked about the process of decision-making. The Lord isn't going to tell you what to do. You need to make a decision, and He will confirm if that's the correct decision. You have to put the work into it. As same as with a painting, the Lord might inspire you, but you still need to do the work. You've got to get that paintbrush out and paint. And as I did with the Lindon temple, I made several preliminary drawings. I didn't sit down and say, guide my hand. And so with this young woman, we talked about the different opportunities that each job offered. And as she went through them, she made a decision at that point that this one job was going to offer her an opportunity to grow. The other one may have financially had some advantages, but the one particular job looked like it long-term had more opportunities. And so she made that decision, and she ran into the temple. She came out later, after she had been in the temple, just glowing. She had her decision confirmed. She knew for sure that she had made the right decision. It's really a neat opportunity for me to see a young woman that put the work into thinking about it, praying about it, and then having it confirmed.
I love that story. And I love that she received guidance and direction and power to move forward in her life. And this makes me think of what President Nelson just said at conference. He said, the reward for keeping covenants with God is heavenly power, power that strengthens us to withstand our trials, temptations, and heartaches better. This power eases our way. Those who live the higher laws of Jesus Christ have access to his higher power. Thus, covenant keepers are entitled to a special kind of rest that comes to them through their covenantal relationship with God. And I wonder, for you in your life, how have you found rest through your covenant relationship with God?
I've learned to trust. There's been times in my life when things seemed pretty difficult, and how I'd like to have known the future. It was like if I knew the outcome of what I was looking into doing, it would make life so much easier, but I would have lost all sense of free agency at that point. At my advancing age and looking back, I can see that the Lord was with me on the whole journey. And so keeping the covenants are crucial. And sometimes the outcome isn't what you expect, but if you look at the long picture, it's what you need and what is best for you. Watercolorists have a problem when things don't work out as they want. You can't paint over it like you do an oil paint because it's not opaque, and so you're going to see the mistake showing through. However, watercolors do make mistakes, and so there are ways in which we can correct mistakes. If it's a minor mistake, you can just add water and it'll wash out the color. It's like if we make minor mistakes, baptism washes out our errors, and then after baptism, taking the sacrament will help. If it's a larger error in watercolor, we have what we call a scrubber. It's a brush, but it's kind of rough, and you can scrub off the surface of the paper, actually, and lift the mistake. Yes, the mistake is still there, but it's unimportant. And in the gospel, this is like repentance. You pray, you ask for forgiveness, you may go to your ecclesiastical authority to repent, and the mistake can be eradicated. It can be lightened and lessened so that it's no longer obvious to you or to others. If you make a major mistake in watercolor, basically we have what we call whiteout. It's an opaque white, and you buy the paint that matches the color of the paper. So if I'm painting on Arches paper, bright white, the whiteout you buy for that particular paper. When mistakes cannot be eradicated, this is what Christ's atonement provides for us. It will eradicate the mistake. And it's only through Christ that major mistakes can be eradicated.
Yeah, he is the one who can cover our sins, right? He can make them so that he will remember them no more, right, at the judgment seat. And we can remember them, but we're not impacted by them, and we don't have to remember them with the heartache that we once did. I think that's really beautiful. Jesus invited us to be with him and rise to his level. And we talk about arising with Christ as our title of our podcast. And we want to think about those invitations. He extended that invitation to Nephi when he visited the Nephites to arise and come unto him. He invited people to arise and be healed and take up their bed and walk. He extends that invitation often, and we want to emphasize that and think about how we can arise with Christ in our lives. So for you, what is something that you are doing to arise with Christ?
I think that service to others is very, very important. As I'm able to help others in whatever way I can, it brings me closer to Christ at all times. Sometimes I feel, and I'm 83 years old, that I can't do some of the things that I would like to do, that I used to do without any difficulty. However, I can still serve Christ in my life in so many ways. And with my family, my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren now, and with neighbors, friends, and sometimes with people that I'm not even acquainted with. Things that we do can be helpful to them and brings us the joy and brings us closer to Christ through service. We know that service to our Lord is absolutely important for our own salvation. As I serve, I often think it's not about the person, it's about me, what it does for me when I serve others. And also serving others that serve me is very, very important. We recently had a major snowfall in our neighborhood. Leaves, especially the maple trees, had not dropped. And it was a massive snowfall, and there was a tremendous amount of breakage of trees. And immediately, there was a large group, several groups of men that were out gathering up the debris, cutting the half-broken limbs down. It was throughout the whole neighborhood. No one called on them. They just did it. They went around the neighborhood seeing where the needs were. And I was a recipient, but it was interesting. I was not home. I was out serving when they came to my house. And so we don't necessarily serve those that are serving us. We may be serving others, and someone else is serving us, and that's the beauty of the gospel.
That is beautiful. And you really are an amazing example of that, Gail. You're anxiously engaged all the time in wonderful, good things. And we've all been recipients of your service, I think. So you really do live that really well. Thank you for that example.
We're so grateful for you today, grateful that you were willing to spend time with us and share your testimony of Jesus Christ and your example and your talents and experiences. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that you wanted to share?
I just appreciate this opportunity. I feel very grateful that you would think of asking me.
Well, we are so appreciative of you, and thank you for having us in your home and welcoming us here, and we love you. We are grateful that you joined us today. We would love to hear your stories about how you arise with Jesus Christ. You can find us on Instagram at arise.with.christ or email us at arisewithchrist.temples@gmail.com.